So the degree is dead, or more accurately, it is dying. My name is Sergio Marrero, and I have focused on research and access to higher education for about the past 7 years, and I'm going to share with you my learnings from my startup experience in the space. And the reason I'm passionate about this work is because I was first in my family to go to a 4-year institution and realized the value that it has brought me, and I think everyone should have access to the richness of these communities and this network. But when I say the degree is dead, what I mean is it's not a ticket to a job. It used to be, but today it's different. Most people don't use higher education as a way to train and retrain to get a job and keep pace with the evolving economy. But through our research, what we found is everything that exists to create an accessible system is already here, and we can make this future possible. And I'm going to share how we can do that with you. So my journey started working in Philadelphia as a consultant, not too far from here, and I was mentoring a high school student that wanted to go to college. He was first in his family to go to college, came from a single-parent household, and didn't have someone to go to, and we worked together, and I helped him apply, and he got in. And it was through that I felt very satisfied because I had gone through the process and I was helping him, and I wanted to do more of that. So I ended up going back to grad school and focusing on impact innovation and started with education. And within the first 2 months, he called me and he told me this: I have to help my mom pay rent, I need to drop out. You see, he was working full-time and he still couldn't make enough to pay to go to school full-time and help his mother pay rent. And then he moved to part-time status, which made him ineligible for aid, so he dropped out altogether. And while we were researching, this made me frustrated. And I said, what can I do? But at this point, we researched to understand how big is this problem and how we can help make a difference for more people. So we dived in, and I'll share what we learned. Put your hands up if you're in college or you've been to college. Right. We represent the minority. 40% of the US has been to college. 40%. If you look around the world, it's 7%. Just let that sink in for a minute. We are a very small group of very privileged people. This shocked me and shook our team and said, why is this? So we took a step deeper, and a lot of it is the cost. The cost of higher education, specifically in the US, has outpaced wages, has outpaced housing, has outpaced other consumer products. When you graduate, you will graduate with at least $35,000 worth of debt on average, right? And that is pretty scary. So taking a step deeper, I think at this point, I said, you know what the answer is? Let's make college free. But the more we actually interviewed people with college degrees and how they correlate to jobs, that won't solve the problem. We heard stories of this young woman. She had a background in psychology, and she ended up working in retail. And her story is not unique. About 45% of the people that graduate with 4-year degrees are in jobs that aren't aligned with what they studied. Let me back that up so you can think about that. About half of the people that study something and they want a job in that field end up in something different because they can't find work. To put that into perspective, let's say you borrowed $35,000 to buy a brand new car. You waited a long time for that car, and now you have it, and you sat down and you go to turn it on, and at about half the time, it doesn't work because that's what you intended for it to do. Pretty sobering, right? So the next step was why? Why is there this disconnect in higher education and jobs? And we heard this: what's happening in the classroom is different from what's happening in the field. This young man, he's an entrepreneur. He was working in a startup focused on design. He decided to go to school for design so he can be better at his job. And he said what was happening in the classroom, reputable school, which I won't mention, was at least 5 years behind what was happening in the field. And it makes sense. If you think about the trends that are happening in technology, you talk about self-driving cars, reusable rockets, AI that outsmarts people, and digital currencies, how can one institution keep up with all the emerging trends? It's highly unlikely. And in a multi-year program, you're likely to graduate, learning things that don't directly relate or are actually out of date. And I'm not saying that college isn't an amazing place. At this point, I can feel you're pretty sobered by all this information. I was too. And college is an amazing place. It creates research and innovation that shapes the world. All those technology trends you see were made possible by innovation that came out of institutions. I went to college and I made friends that I will have for the rest of my life. But being real, college is a luxury experience that very few get to engage in. And while it's a system of just-in-case learning, there's all this learning, and we learn it just in case we may apply it to our jobs, but we may not use all of it. We need a system of just-in-time learning as well that fits with job and delivers education as we need it, as we can afford it, and as it fits with our careers. So this is what we need for the rest of the people that can engage in this system, and also for us when we're no longer here. So what we did to try to focus on building the system of just-in-time learning, like a startup, we dived in. We interviewed hundreds of people. We interviewed college presidents, current students, dropouts, experts in higher education and the future of work. We started prototyping. That's my co-founder, Alana Matos, and we made certain things that we feel are directionally pointing at what the future concepts of a just-in-time learning system could be. Examples of that are chatbots, where anyone could actually talk to this virtual assistant for career guidance. Rethinking the enrollment process so anyone can engage in any course, anywhere, anytime. And taking free learning and aligning it so that people that can't get in here can learn cutting-edge subjects with free learning. In all of this, what we learned is 4 things that we think can change and create a system of access and sustainable learning for the world. And we're going to share that with you today. The first part is unbundle. While people couldn't afford the entire experience, the whole 4-year experience, they can afford an individual course or an individual class. So pairing that with the videos, books, podcasts, articles that are being created that are actually some of the latest learning is step 1. Step 2 is actually reassembling that to jobs. An example of that we use was there's a self-driving car job in Detroit, and the best match to learn that job quickly was actually a local class at Lawrence Tech, and so that they get the in-person community and interaction, and the self-driving car degree by Udacity. That was the quickest, fastest, cheapest way to get them into that job. The next is creating areas of application. And a place that's doing this well is P-Tech High School out in Brooklyn, and they work with IBM, and these students learn computer science, they intern at IBM, and they graduate job ready. And the last is credentialing, and we need this for employers. Right now, they're using the degree because there's no other options, but we can actually create a smarter data-driven indicator. An example of that, let's say I'm applying to a job and you have my learning history. You can actually compare my learning history, to people that are in the job right now. And you might be looking at this and trying to wrap your head around it. It's simple. We do this with dating apps, right? We match people, we come up with a match. There is no reason that we cannot do this for jobs. And also, you can tell me what I need to learn to be a better match for that job, instead of hearing no from the job and being frustrated and unclear of where you need to go next. So these are the things we can do. Unbundling the learning across institutions, aligning it to jobs, creating areas where we can apply that learning in context, and creating credentials that are based on real data and not subjectivity of a group. And there are already companies working on this, making impact in the space and making bridges for people to get jobs and retrain with the evolving economy. But there are too many people that aren't being served today. And this is the big idea I came to share with you today, is the technology already exists to make this possible. We can make a system that not only helps people train and retrain to keep up with the evolving economy and improves our country and our world, but it's up to us to create a better future. Thank you.